Breaking Patterns and Conditioning. My name is Johnny Christ, and I'm here to tell you how you can relieve yourself of suffering, anxiety, depression, and take back control of your life. Conditioning is something that takes place in our life that we are not aware of. Some people call it programming. Other people call it like patterns or karma, but I'm about to explain exactly what it is. Conditioning is something that you learn at an early age. It's traits that you develop by watching role models, the environment that you're in, and a big part of it is just what we learn from our parents, am I right? Let me give you an example of conditioning. You're a child, and you grow up, and you're watching your parents, your father, and you see him, he's getting angry. Anytime something doesn't work out, he gets upset. And to you, you're like, oh, this is acceptable behavior. And you're watching him, yell at whatever he's yelling at, or if he's having a problem with like the computer, he's like pushing that button as hard as he can because it won't go to the next screen. And you take that behavior because that's your role model. And by watching him, because that's what we do, we watch and observe, you absorb those traits and you think it's acceptable, and that's the way you cope with things that are going on in your life. So as you grow up, anytime you are faced with a challenge or an obstacle, you start feeling that anger inside, and you start feeling like you start having those memories of how your father handled those situations, and that's how you handle those situations. And obviously, because it's normal, you don't realize it's going on. A lot of people that have anger issues don't realize they have anger issues. Well, that's conditioning. And it's not even just anger. I'm going to go into a whole list. There's actually 12 categories of like all the different conditioning that takes place. So I'll go into those. But I'm trying to just have you understand, first off, what conditioning is. Now, the thing with conditioning is it's been going on for generations. That's called a cycle. Not only did your father handle things a certain way, and you handled the same things a certain way that your father did, but his father before him taught him, and after you, your kids are going to look after you, and then that conditioning is going to be passed down. So after generations of that conditioning, that's called a karmic cycle. And to be free of karma is to break that conditioning. And I know that like with everything going on in the world right now, a lot of people are starting to wake up and they're starting to be like, this is not right. Well, that's because you're having the awareness. The awareness is the first step, and people don't realize that. People don't realize that once you have the awareness, you can break that conditioning. And if you can break all 12 of these conditioning, you're unstoppable. You're in your true power, and you have full control over your life. So the first conditioning is not knowing. All right? Not knowing is fear of the unknown. People literally focus on the future. They focus on the past. They don't realize that the present moment is all that's there. The future is always in your head. People have these arguments with people before they even get to the person. They're mentally exhausted before they even show up. They play this situation in their head over and over in so many different ways. And they do not realize like it's actually happening. It didn't physically happen, but mentally it happened, and you caused it. And that's all the fear of the unknown, because people try to control all the situations, and unfortunately life is nothing but obstacles. But that's the whole point. It's supposed to challenge you, because when you are uncomfortable, you want to get into a better situation. But if you're comfortable, you're not going to go anywhere. And why would you not want to grow as an individual? So the first one, like I said, is not knowing, and that creates fear. You got to just let loose. You got to let go, because not everything can be controlled. The only person that can control things in your life is you. And if you have obstacles, you just have to get over them. The next one is grief. Grief comes from worrying. And worrying is lack of presence. It's like, that's another thing, is like literally goes back to the lack of presence. People focus on the past. They're focused on past relationships or past circumstances, and they become a victim to it. That becomes their identity. But that's not who you are. We change constantly, because as we go through things in our life, we evolve. And that's the whole point, is you're trying to be the best person you can possibly be. The third one is intemperance. Intemperance is lack of restraint or overindulgence. Obviously, you see people who they're so weak to when it comes to like snacks or like sugar, coffee, even marijuana, alcohol, all of that. Substance abuse. Anything can be abused. Yes, there are things that suit your needs, but there's a point where it no longer suits your needs, and there's a point where you do too much. So overindulgence is another one. The next one is concupiscence. That is lust. That is a strong sexual desire. Think about how many times you have missed out on meeting people. How many times you have held back, or you've just not gone out and do things, or you're sitting there waiting for a text because you're so worried about hanging out with somebody because you're trying to get, everybody wants that unconditional love. Everybody wants to feel it. But there's a point where it becomes too much, because when you're dictating your whole life around lust, around trying to get, the sexual desires fulfilled, you're just wasting your life. Because how many times have you been disappointed? It's enough. The next one is unrighteousness. Unrighteousness is just plain wicked. That's just pretty much it. Righteousness is the power against desire without effort. When it becomes second nature. And desire, like I said before, is concupiscence, lust, strong sexual desire, or even intemperance, a lack of restraint, overindulgence. We desire things in life. Why? Who knows? When it wasn't even in our life and we weren't aware of it, we never needed it. But as soon as it comes in your life, if it makes you feel happy, obviously it gets to the point where people become addicted to that feeling, because that's all people want, is to feel good. But you can feel good without all this stuff. The next one's avarice. Now, avarice is extreme greed for wealth and material gain. I don't even know if I have to explain that. That's the thing, is people think that when it comes to, money, the power of money, that it's being able to buy whatever you want. That's not true. The power of money is being able to buy your freedom, your time. Like think about this. You go to a job, right? And you do overtime. And what happens when you do overtime? You're like, oh, I'm going to buy this thing I've always wanted because I deserve it. Well, you buy it. Well, it's a repetitive cycle, and you get stuck into that cycle. And think about this. The more money you make, why is it that the more money you make, the more you spend, the more debt you get? It's because people literally buy things to fulfill this need, and it's like a temporary fulfillment, because think of how many times you bought something and you just forget about it. Think of all the stuff in your room right now that you probably don't even know it's there. Take a good look around your room. You're going to see things for the first time that you haven't seen in so long. The whole point for the power of money is to be able to buy your time back. Like literally, freedom. That's what we all want. We want to be able to do whatever we want, whenever we want. And unfortunately, we've been conditioned to believe that the 9-to-5 job, you got to go to college to be successful, you got to do all this stuff. What happens? You work your life away. And then you work in overtime. And then you're trying to buy all this stuff you don't need. As soon as you get money, put it aside. The whole point is so you can buy your time back, so you can take days to do what you want to do. The next one's error. Error is being wrong in conduct and judgment. Like literally, trust your body. We have these things, they're called coherent. Like you want to create coherence. You want to sync your mind with how you feel. And a lot of people don't feel. A lot of people don't trust their gut. We have those feelings for a reason. If you start having anxiety over a situation, maybe that situation doesn't suit you. And maybe you should change the situation. But also think about this. If you're having these feelings and it leads back to the fear of the unknown, you gotta stop being afraid to, we have so much power. You have so much power. You can do anything you want to do in life. So why are you afraid? What's the worst that's gonna happen? Look at all you've been through already. You've already suffered so much. Literally there's nothing that can happen to us that we can't handle. So there's you should not have a fear of the unknown. And because you have a fear of the unknown, you literally don't trust, you won't trust your feeling because it gives you anxiety just to venture out. You got to start understanding what these signals inside of your body are telling you. And the only way to do that is to start self-reflecting, start going inside and feeling when you think of a situation, does it make you feel good? Does it make you feel bad? You know, if it makes you feel nervous, that's a little bit different. But you just got to trust your feeling. The next one's envy. That's the desire to have qualities or possessions that others have that you want. You should never compare yourself to other people. The only person that can fulfill you is you. And like I said earlier, we feel like we need all these things, but before we even knew what it was, we didn't need it. We only need it now because we were aware it exists. But that's the thing is, none of this stuff's going to solve our problems. The only way you're going to solve your problems is to get out there and do things for you. You don't need anything that anybody else has. The next one's guile. You know, sly or cunning intelligence. Those are people that are sneaky and deceitful. Always be honest. Always speak the truth. I know that we've been conditioned to believe that if you speak the truth, you're going to hurt somebody's feelings. And, you know, as a kid, you know, people would come up to you and you always felt like you couldn't be honest because you didn't want to disappoint nobody. We live in a world where people just need to be truthful and people need to stop taking things personal. Because when you're constantly holding in your true self, you're being deceitful to everybody, even including yourself. And like everybody's doing it. It's not something like I'm not saying this is something that like we should take personal. We just have to be aware that we need to get to a point where we can be honest with ourselves and with everybody else. Things are going to go a lot smoother. Anger. Anger is a big issue, like I said earlier in the conditioning example, that people aren't realizing. You know, people get angry because of lack of power or control. When you can't control a situation, when an obstacle shows up and you're just like, I don't want to deal with this, that's anger. You got to let it go. We have obstacles in our life, you know, and we've been taught through school, and people don't realize this, we can research anything we need to know. Instead of getting angry, you're going to waste all that time. You're going to get your body's going to feel terrible. There's no point for it. Literally take a step back, evaluate the situation, and understand what you can do about it. Because literally there's so much you can do about it. We have all this technology around us where we can research anything we need to know. We have customer support. We can call anybody like that we need to talk to just so we can solve a problem. Rashness. That is carelessness, that you don't care if you harm yourself or others. We're not here to hinder other people. We're not supposed to be petty. We're not supposed to hold other people back. Stay in your own lane, focus on yourself, and move forward in life. Because the only person that can get you where you want to go is you. Last one's malice. That's the desire to be evil. There's no point to be evil. People become evil because they're jealous or they feel like they deserve more than what they have. You get what you put into life, and unfortunately, if you put in the wrong things in life, you're going to get the wrong things back. That's why understanding these conditioning is so important, because without understanding conditioning, you have no awareness of these problems. And the first step to resolving any problem is to have an awareness of it. I appreciate your guys' time, and I'm going to be posting another video to where I'm going to explain to you guys what you can do to break this conditioning. Thank you.